Halliburton's got the ball. Halliburton rises up. And there's a whistle. Oh, my goodness. Tyrese Halliburton hits a three and is fouled.
You have got to be kidding me.
McConnell underneath the basket. Looking. Toppin in the corner for three.
Oh, yeah! Yeah! OB!
Pacers have it, a chance to tie.
Yeah, Nembhard
hits the three. Nembhard gives Indiana the lead.
Hello, welcome back to the Pacers Fever Show. I'm your host, Logan, and today we've got an exciting episode lined up. We are going to preview Game 5 for the Pacers versus the Cavaliers. After a thrilling win in Game 4, the Pacers have put themselves in the driver's seat, taking a commanding 3-1 lead in the series. With their backs against the wall, the Cavs will look to fight off elimination, but the Pacers are feeling pretty confident as they head to Cleveland with one goal and one goal only in mind, closing out the series and advancing to their second straight Eastern Conference Finals. We'll be breaking down the key moments from the last win in Game 4, covering the storylines heading into Game 5, and discuss what the Pacers need to do to seal the deal on the road. It's do or die for the Cavs, and the Pacers are looking to finish strong and punch their ticket to the next round. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into all of the action here on the Pacers Fever Show. The number 1 seed Cleveland Cavaliers versus the number 4 seed Indiana Pacers. This is the Game 5 preview. Let's talk about that remaining schedule for this series. Pacers are ahead in the series 3-1, heading back to Cleveland tomorrow night against the Cavs on their home floor, May 13th, 7 p.m. Eastern time tip on TNT. Again, that's Tuesday, May 13th, 7 p.m. Eastern time on TNT. Should it need to go to Game 6, Cavaliers will go back to Indy on Thursday, May 15th. That time will be determined later on, probably tomorrow after the games conclude, if a Game 6 is needed, and that will be on ESPN. Game 7, Pacers at Cavs, Sunday, May 18th. That time and network will be determined should a Game 7 be needed. But hopefully, as Pacer fans and as Pacer listeners, we do not get to Game 6 or Game 7, and the Pacers have an opportunity here to stamp a statement on this year's playoffs and make a case for why they can contend for a title in these 2025 NBA playoffs. A matchup that could be happening is in this next round, could be a rematch, of last year's Eastern Conference Finals, as the Boston Celtics will look tonight to beat the New York Knicks and force a Game 6 at least. That series is New York Knicks 2, Boston Celtics 1, and the Celtics are visiting Madison Square Garden and looking to win a second straight game in Madison Square Garden, and it will be a series in which the away teams have won both games on the road. So looking forward to watching that tonight. That tips off very shortly, but I'm looking forward to covering the Eastern Conference Finals, hopefully, with these Pacers and one of those two teams. Very good teams in the Eastern Conference, but I believe the Pacers have a good shot to beat both of those teams should they advance. So I'm looking forward to covering that series, seeing how that series ends with New York and Boston, and looking forward to the next round. But first, can't overlook these Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, it would take a great effort for the Cavs to come back and force a Game 5. It would take an even more extraordinary effort to force a Game 6, and an improbable effort to get to Game 7. And the reason why I say that is teams who have gone up 3-1 in their 7-game series have advanced 96% of the time. Out of the 293 playoff series, 280 teams have advanced, went up 3-1 in a 7-game set. Only 13 times has a team come back from a 3-1 deficit to win the 7-game series. Pacers looking to avoid being that 14th team. They're looking to avoid history. They keep making history. So let's hope that they are not in fate to go down and lose this series after being ahead 3-1. They have 2 remaining games in Cleveland. Should it go to a Game 7, they have 1, which in Indianapolis, which would be Game 6 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. My prediction before the series started was that this series would go 6 games and the Pacers would come out on top. So far, so good. I've got a lot to say about this game 5 coming up. I think there's a lot of caveats as to what could happen in this game. I do believe that this is a toss-up kind of game. I don't know as far as like what the health of the Cavs is looking like. I don't know what the Pacers do after such a monumental and historic win in game 4, coming off an extreme high where they've tend to struggle throughout the years prior to really stomp on the gas and eliminate a team when down. But that being said, I think that there's always room for growth. And I think this is another opportunity for the Indiana Pacers. There's always been these opportunities dating back to last year's postseason. This is just another opportunity and another step that the Pacers have to take, right? We've talked about certain things that these Pacers must do, especially in 2025, to advance and become that title contending team that they had the goal of and set out for when they started the offseason in 2024. The Pacers last year, their goal was to get into the postseason and challenge these teams and win at least the first round game. I think would have been the Pacers' goal after that seeding had fallen and Giannis was out. I think the Pacers saw that as we just need to get past this first round, and that will be growth. Well, they went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals after a good series against the Knicks and then got swept against the Celtics, but had a really good showing in that Eastern Conference Final gentleman sweep that they had against those Celtics. The Pacers come into this season knowing that they must get home court advantage in that first round. That was their goal, be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference, and they accomplished just that after a very difficult start to their season. The Pacers go on quite a run and become one of the best teams in the NBA over the last 50 some odd games, and they clinched that number 4 spot, beat the Bucks in 5 games, and really took advantage of playing in front of their home crowd. Those first 2 games made it extremely difficult on Milwaukee. And then they go into Milwaukee and win game 4, come back in game 5 and close out the Bucks. But after a disastrous first half or 3 quarters in that game 5 game against the Bucks, Pacers turned it on, came back and all the way back and won that game. And then they head into Cleveland, and Cleveland, the top team in the Eastern Conference. Pacers had a really interesting season against them just because I don't think any of the rotations that have played in this game really had a complete game together and playing each other. So this is the first time that the Pacers and Cavs have been at somewhat full strength, and these rotations have seen each other for a full game or two. It was a feel out process in game 1. Pacers steal game 1, and then in game 2, come back from the jaws of defeat. They get out from that bite that the jaws of defeat were about to deliver, and they pull that out in a miracle win, trailing by 7 points with 40 seconds left. Pacers storm back, and win that game, go up 2-0. Come back for game 3, very disappointing game 3, but expected. Cavs get all their guys back and healthy, as healthy as they can be. And then in game 4, the Pacers put an absolute stomping on the Cleveland Cavaliers, winning game 4. And now here we sit, game 5, 3-1 after a game that it's tough to really take away anything for the Cavs in game 4. It was that bad of a beatdown. I think the Cavs came out and played lackluster. There was no offense. They didn't play any defense. The Pacers just ran through them, around them. And there was nothing that the Cavs could do to stop them necessarily on the defensive side of the ball. And when that was happening and they weren't hitting shots, it was just a perfect culmination of issues for the Cavs and a pretty good timing for the Pacers to go incredibly hot from the field in the first half. In game 4, just kind of going back over some key things that happened. The Benedict Mathurin, DeAndre Hunter scuffle that ended in Benedict Mathurin getting the boot and getting kicked out of game 4. And DeAndre Hunter, who should have also been thrown out in this game, just receives a technical foul. But that really is where it started, that onslaught of points. And the Pacers did their own version of a Cavalanche and destroyed the Cleveland Cavaliers and put them to bed pretty quickly coming out of that first quarter. They went on a 10-0 run to start the second, and by that point they were up 25, and that was pretty much all she wrote. Pacers led at half in game 5, 80-39 on 60% from the field, 12 of 18 from from the 3-point line. Paint points, they had 30, and then points off of turnovers, they had 23. Cavs turned the ball over a lot. Pacers did not hardly turn the ball over at all, especially in that first half. I think they only had 4 turnovers in the first half. Took extremely good care of the basketball, rebounded well. Didn't end up winning the rebound battle, but this is the kind of margin that you live with, especially against a Cavs team that have 2 of the best rebounding bigs in the NBA. The Pacers stayed close in those margins and have stayed pretty close in the games that they've won in those margins and have done a much better job. Sorry, Bob. Much better job. Sorry, of getting boards, boxing out their guys, and then getting out into their offense and running, because that's been a key to their success. Getting out in transition, making that Cavs defense work at an extremely fast rate, up and down the floor, over. I think they said that the Pacers have been outshot by like 15 on average against the Cavs, but have somehow still won 2 out of the 3 games, and then now have outshot the Cavs 3 of the 4, or sorry, have now outshot the Cavs finally for the first time, I believe, in game 4. So, and as far as that, I mean, the amount of shot volume that they get, I think the Pacers had 10 to 15 more shots in this game, where the Cavs had kind of owned that advantage in the games prior. And that's what caused the Pacers some issues defensively, especially in game 3. And then in game 3, the Cavs come out with that zone, and the Pacers weren't ready for it. The coaching staff wasn't ready for it. It's a 3-2 zone with Evan Mobley at the top and some of their bigs up more on the top and at the point of that 3-2 zone, guarding the ball handler and forcing them into a decision. Pacers figured it out, got down low. You got Miles Turner eating up the middle of that zone. You had Halliburton also with TJ McConnell driving in between the space, getting into the middle of that zone, causing the breakdown. And the Pacers were hitting their shots in game 4, where they weren't hitting their shots in game 3. I felt like if they'd hit some of their shots in the first and second quarter in game 3, it would have been a closer game, more tightly contested than it was. The Cavs did win by 22 in game 3, but the Pacers end up winning by 20. Definitely felt more, in game 4, but the Pacers, it felt more like a 30-point win yesterday. It was just such a great offensive game, and a game where they got contributions from just about everybody. Their offense is clicking at a very high level at the very right time of the right time. It's hard to speak today. And they look great. I mean, the Pacers look like they did last year at points where they were the best offense in the league. This year, a little bit of regression, but I think that was expected. Teams adjusted. They figured out how to slow them down somewhat, but in this series, the Pacers are averaging 118 points per game, and they look like the better team right now. I mean, slice it and dice it, however you want to say it. It just, the Pacers look more competitive. They look battle tested. They've been able to go around different challenges and obstacles that they've had. They've been able to really face off against adversity and went toe to toe with this Cavs team that really had a shot. They had a really good shot in game 4 to make this a very interesting series. If the Cavs win game 4, it's 2-2. They're heading back to Cleveland. All the momentum would swing back to the Cavs, having that advantage, going back to one of the most difficult places to play on the road in Cleveland, Rocket Mortgage. And the Pacers, I think, would have struggled to win this series at that point. I do. I think out of a best of 3, I think the Cavs obviously had the advantage because they had 2 games at home. But that momentum swing back to the Cavs after the Pacers felt really good about themselves would have been pretty devastating, I think, for this Pacer team. And while they're very good at answering and responding, that's still a really tall task to go in and play the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference 2-2. And now you've got a best of 3 series with them owning 2 games at home. We were nervous. I'm not going to lie. Pacer fans, I'm sure we all were. I was. On X, people were. The podcast had that same kind of sentiment where they were concerned about what this Pacer team might do if they drop a game at home again and the series was tied up. There was a good chance, and still is a good chance, that the Cavs could come back and fight back and claw back in this series. If the Cavs win game 5, game 6 becomes so important. You do not want to go to a game 7 in Cleveland. Anything can happen in game 7, but I don't think you'd feel very confident if you were a Pacer fan or Pacer player having to go back into game 7 at Rocket Mortgage against this team in that environment. The Pacers took care of business in Madison Square Garden on a game 7, but you had a lot of those players going down. Jalen Brunson broke his hand. OG Anunoby played like 2 minutes and looked like he could barely walk. So the Pacers had a lot of things going right for them, and then they got unbelievably hot. There would be a time where the Pacers weren't shooting it as well, and I'd be worried about a game 7 in Cleveland. Still could happen, but the Pacers have to feel really good about the positioning that they're in, but not too good. As Rick Carlisle said in the postgame, we haven't done anything yet, right? We haven't beaten this team and knocked them out of the playoffs yet. We had the chance to do so, and that's a tall task to have to sweep this team. But you had the chance, you didn't do it. Game 4, feel really great about the way you performed. One of the best performances that you've had in the postseason, but you can't get too high, right? I think that's where sometimes this team really does struggle. They get a little too high on the game prior, and I think kind of lose focus. And when they don't have to make adjustments, they're a little lackadaisical in what they originally had planned in these game plans. They get a little shot happy. Defense isn't as intense. They know that they've got another game in Cambridge where they feel like, oh, well, we can just close them out in game 6. But you can't go in thinking like that. You got to go into game 5 thinking everybody is still doubting you. Everybody is still saying, well, Cleveland can win this series. I mean, there was a lot of national writers still that were going, Cleveland's still, I think, going to win this series. And that's like, I mean, where are you coming up with that? Because, I mean, if you're looking at just odds alone, 96%. And I'm not saying that Indiana can't lose the series. I'm just saying they're so quick to go, oh yeah, Cleveland in 7. It's wild to me, just because if you're looking at this objectively and look at the odds of this happening, I think everybody would be leaning Pacers, and you'd have that one random person saying, no, I think Cleveland. But there's still quite a few people that think the Cavs still win this series. So Pacers got a lot to prove still. They're always going to be the underdog. They'll definitely be the underdogs betting line. I didn't even check the betting line tomorrow night, but they'll be the underdogs. The Cavs will have the favorite mark next to them. The only way I could see that changing is Donovan Mitchell doesn't play in game 5. But we have an update earlier this afternoon. Shams updated us on the Donovan Mitchell injury, so we'll get into that. But I just wanted to open up this podcast by talking about how important game 5 is, right? So if you're on the YouTube version, I do a rundown. We're on our first bullet point, and it's how important is game 5. It's a funny question, because I think most people will say, well, that's obvious. Of course it's important. It's in the playoffs. It's game 5. Pacers can shut it down or let the Cavs have some life. But what I mean is how important it is for the Pacers going forward. So, a couple things. The real reason why I asked this is the real reason why this is important. This is, again, that next step in the Pacers' growth, right? This is a really, really good team, a very talented team, best team in the Eastern Conference that you have on the ropes, that you can crush their spirits, their hopes, their dreams all at once by beating them on their home floor and celebrating your second straight trip to the Eastern Conference Finals. What would be better than seeing the Pacers celebrate on the Cavs' home floor, on their logo, another series win in which they had the team on the ropes and smashed them in game 5? I think it would be an exclamation point for these Pacers going into the Eastern Conference Finals against Boston or New York. I think that if you settle this in game 5 and put the Cavs out, you will be sending a statement to the rest of the league and the national media that you're for real. Because I don't think Donovan Mitchell will miss the game. I think he tries to give it a go in game 5. Now, whether he plays the whole game or whatever happens. Like if he's not as effective because of the ankle injury, I could see that happening. Him coming out, whatever. But you're not going to get 100% Donovan Mitchell. And that makes the Cavs very vulnerable. And their role players really struggled in game 4. They struggled to find any kind of consistency. They just vanished. And I think that you could really put this Cavs franchise in a difficult spot. I think they said they were in the second apron. Like they're in really tough spots with their contracts, even more so probably than the Bucks. Because the Bucks, I feel like if you're a Bucks fan, you know that it's just going to get ugly from here on. Giannis is already starting to talk about possibly making a decision not to be in Milwaukee. You know, Buck fans will argue with you, but I think at the end of the day, I think Giannis will consider a move. He might not move, but I think he will take moments in the offseason to really look over his future in Milwaukee because it's very bleak with the opportunities they have to add players. Whereas I think the Cavs are kind of the opposite. They had the team that they thought was a title contending team. I think that if they had certain pieces play better, that this could be a title contending team. I'm not as down on some of these players as some of the other people, I think. But like, you know, there's maybe a player or two in the starting lineup that you can improve on or gain an advantage by trading that player for a better player. But I still think this Cavs team is a very good team. I question some of the role players and their abilities now because they've fallen flat. But I still think that this Cavs team has at least a resemblance of a title contending team with very good core pieces. I mean, Donovan Mitchell is a top 10 player at least in the NBA, if not top 5, especially in these playoffs. He's been like the top player in this playoff. So I say that all to say the Pacers have a chance to do this to another franchise. The Pacers put the Bucks out of their misery 2 years straight, and now the Bucks faithful, the Bucks organization, Bucks players, staff, internally, they're all questioning what the future looks like for Milwaukee. And the Pacers have done that to them. They've been the final nail in their coffin. I would love for the Pacers to be the final nail in this iteration of what the Cleveland Cavaliers are. I would love for the Pacers to knock out Donovan Mitchell and he not reach the next round for another year. I like that narrative that, you know, the Pacers are second, maybe third best team in this division, with people thinking that Detroit could have challenged the Pacers, that Milwaukee is better than the Pacers, when the Pacers all along have probably been the best team in that division. The Cavs just got off to one of those heater of a start and look like one of the best teams in the league, where they're a good team. I'm just not sure at this point they've really shown you that they are in that top echelon of teams like OKC is, like Boston. You could probably throw New York and Denver into that mix at points. Maybe the Wolves. Pacers are in that conversation, but I'm not sure the Cavs are ready to enter that conversation because they've not proven that they belong with those teams. So Pacers have a chance to do something very, very special and devastating to this Cleveland Cavaliers team. Can the Pacers pull it off? Can they finally get rid of this pesky Cavs team? Or will it go game 6, game 7? I think you would hate to see it. But that's how important this game is. You want to close this out because you want to be the final nail in a division rival's coffin, especially in the playoffs, especially for a team that thought they had title aspirations. End it. Put them down, because it can change the course of what they do in the future too, and the course of what you might be able to do to them in the years to come. Because we'd love to see the Pacers win the finals this year. Could it happen? Yeah. Is it going to be very challenging? Absolutely. You're going to have to play very good teams. But I think the Pacers can really set themselves up for the future if they're plucking some of these teams off, and these teams are having to make big changes. And I think big changes could be on the horizon for the Cavs. Maybe not this next year, but the following year. Just kind of like what the Bucks were, right? If the Cavs keep diving out of the playoffs, big changes will happen. They can't just keep going into these second rounds and getting bounced by better teams. And this will be the second year in a row that they've done so. Even after having the coach of the year and arguably one of the best players in the league this season and 3 All-Stars. So Pacers, that's why Game 5 is important. Game 5 is important for the Pacers because they can do some damage, irreparable damage to this Cavs team, this Cavs franchise. Game 5 is also important for the obvious. Like, you don't want to get to Game 6. You don't want all the pressure on Indianapolis to show up and show out, and for these Pacers to win at Gainbridge Fieldhouse to end the series. Because if they were to lose at home in Game 6, that's going to be a tough one to bounce back from, having to go to Game 7 after you've been in commanding lead of this series. So that is why Game 5 is important. 2 big reasons. The next bullet point on my rundown, physicality. We'll keep revisiting this because it just keeps coming up in conversations. And last night, after taking in all of what Cleveland said about the Pacers and have been saying about the Pacers and just the physicality of this series, and I still stand strong in my beliefs that I shared in the Game 4 recap. I think that the Pacers have caused so many issues for so many teams that teams don't. I think something that I haven't really said yet or verbalized, but I think sometimes these teams look at the Pacers and they don't even understand how they're so good. Which then you can start to question maybe their basketball IQ or understanding of the game. But I do. I think when you look at this Pacer team, I think the players do it too, right? Where they look at this and go, I mean, Pascal Siakam was an all-star, but like Tyrese Halliburton, he had good numbers and really finished the season well, but he wasn't an all-star this year. And outside of that, they're all role players, right? If you look at Miles Turner and them, like those are role players, but they're very good role players. But I think teams are like, how are we not beating? Like, we have a superstar. We have 2 other all-stars in the starting roster. We could have 4 starting all-stars, right? I think they do the same thing that fans do of other teams. They look at the Pacers, they look at their roster, they go, how on earth do these guys keep beating us? And I think if you're a Pacer fan, you get it. You know why they're beating these teams. One, these Pacers have always brought the fight to these better teams, right? I think the league in general sees the Pacers as a very competitive team, but I don't think they really understand it until they're in a series like this against the Pacers. Even teams like New York and Boston sitting on the outside right now, looking at possibly their next matchup with the Pacers, I think they would still be like, okay, we can get them, right? They're not. They beat New York last year, so New York were like, all right, they beat us last year, but our revenge tour starts now. We could really give it back to them. But even though they played them last year, and Cleveland played them last year, Boston played them last year and swept them, I still think teams struggle with the Pacers because they don't understand. And maybe it's not that they don't understand how they're beating them, but I think that it is so hard to game plan for the Pacers because they have so many options that can beat you, right? Whereas if I'm looking at all these teams, I can tell you who's going to beat you. With the Bucks, it was Giannis and possibly Dame, but Dame was out. With this Cavs team, it's going to be Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, possibly Darius Garland. If you look at New York, it'll be Cat and Jalen Brunson. And if you look at Boston, it's Tatum and Brown. Like, those are the guys we know are going to have great games. When I look at the Pacers, and I try to do this objectively, but at any time, in any game, in any night, and this can happen with other teams too, but like, I think more so with the Pacers, there are legitimate, probably 7 to 8 guys that could go for 20 because you can see it from Pascal. Nemhard's done it. Neesmith's done it. Turner's done it. Halliburton's done it. Toppin's now done it. McConnell's gotten close to doing it. And then Benedict Mathurin has done it. So that's 8 players that can go for 20. So what do you do? Right? Who do you game plan for? Well, okay, let's try to game plan against the Pacers. Let's say we're the Cavs going into game 5. What is the number one thing that I think the Cavs have to do? It's stopping Tyrese Halliburton from getting other people involved. How do you do that? Well, you face guard Tyrese Halliburton with Dean Wade, Strus, Sam Merrill, whoever they can throw at him, full court in the whole game, but try to face guard him. Well, we've seen the other Pacers break down man-to-man defense even when they take Halliburton out of the game. We've seen Nemhard break down the defense, Mathurin, Pascal, Neesmith, right? So that doesn't really work. Well, okay, how did we win game 3? Let's look at the game we won. Well, we threw zone at them and they weren't ready for it. A zone's not ever really going to beat this Pacer team if the Pacer teams are making shots. And they've been really effective. They had the highest field goal percentage in the NBA playoffs this year. They've one of the best offenses in the NBA playoffs this year. They've won the most games in the postseason. Because they move the basketball, they're hard to pinpoint. They're very difficult to try to figure out who's going to beat you that night. And they can beat you from every which direction. So it's hard to game plan against that. Then you add in the fact that the Pacers are more physical than a lot of teams. They were more physical than the Bucks. They're more physical than the Cavs. They're definitely more physical than the Knicks. I would say their best matchup physicality-wise would be the Celtics, but the Celtics are pretty banged up right now. Jaylen Brown's dealing with the knee issue. You've got Holiday dealing with shoulder issues. Porzingis is sick and going through a lot of health issues right now. Horford's older. Tatum's not really a big physical brute. Derek White's very physical, but again, every so often he's letting up off the gas some. So it's not like they're a big bruising team, the Celtics, and they're getting older. So the Pacers don't really fear anybody physically, but I think other teams have issues with the Pacers' physicality. And Atkinson has said it. Now, I think he's saying that the Pacers are kind of chippy with and somewhat dirty without saying it. And he'll keep saying, well, they're not dirty. But the things that he says that follow that phrase, he is alluding to the fact that the Pacers are dirty. Maybe not intentionally, but like the way they play is borderline too physical, which is funny because, you know, you have all these old heads, right, from the NBA of the 90s and 2000s that are like, oh, no, this is great basketball. Like you'll hear it too. You'll hear like Greg Anthony and Reggie and all them when things get ugly and dirty and chippy. They're like, oh, this is great. This reminds me of when I was playing. So it's funny. The fans and stuff like that kind of stuff. But when it's happening to your team, you're like, I don't really like that. So again, I think it's a very fine line, but it's a less physical league, and the Pacers do bring some physicality, but it's not like the Pacers are going out there and like knocking people over and hurting people. They don't. They're not a dirty team, but Kenny Atkinson has kind of labeled them this, and now all their fans believe that the Pacers are all out there just trying to hurt people. Donovan Mitchell's injury is his own thing. Strus getting hit in the face all the time. There was one instance yesterday where Pascal goes to like clear out, and he doesn't even hit Strus. And Strus goes, oh, he hit me in the face. He didn't even touch him. So, and then the whole DeAndre Hunter thing, it was not a closed fist. I don't know why people keep saying it was a closed fist. It's clear as day that it was not a closed fist at this point. We have good enough cameras to say, no, it was a hand, and it was pretty hard, but like he didn't wind up to punch him or anything. DeAndre Hunter should have been thrown out, right? That should have been a like for like ejection, even if it was what they considered a punch. DeAndre Hunter also went up and shoved him two-handed down to the ground. And so guys are allowed to do that, right? So that's the precedent you're saying is as long as somebody does something, we can react and shove people to the ground and only get us a technical. That doesn't seem right. So yeah, Pacers physicality. I mean, it's been a problem. Darius Garland's talked about how it's just been a problem and they can't match the Pacers' force. And they've asked why. The Cavs keep saying that, and the Cavs have no answer for that because that's not a question you can answer. Mental toughness and toughness is not something you can just go, we got to be tougher. Like, you can say it all you want, but you got to be it. You can't just say, I'm going to be more physical and I'm going to be tough. And then all of a sudden you're a tough guy. Like, that's just not how that works. Because if that's the way that worked, everybody would be doing that. And then we'd have a bunch of guys out there being tough. But this is just not a tough physical team. Like, they're just not a physical team. The Cavs aren't. They're a bigger team, but they're not physical. Like, Jared Allen is not a physical being. Evan Mobley's not really that physical. He's not going to get that physical with you. And a lot of times he gets stuck out guarding number fours. So he has a harder time keeping up with them. He's defensive player of the year, but I think as a unit, that's why he gets the defensive player of the year nod. It's not necessarily because he's a lockdown defender. It's because he's collectively better in a system that allows him to be a good defensive player because he can stay in the paint. But when he's playing somebody like Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam, he'll struggle defensively because he doesn't really have a comfortable assignment defensively. Now, he'd be very good against a guy like Aaron Gordon or somebody like that, a little bit older, less mobile, a good shooter, but still, I think, a better matchup for Evan Mobley. So, again, you look up and down this Cavs team. If I'm a Cavs fan, yeah, I get where that narrative comes from, where they're soft. The narrative would be because, one, they don't stay healthy. Two, you have a lot of Cavs fans questioning why some of these guys didn't play in game 2 but came back for game 3, and they get that there was a game in between, and I get that there was a game in between, but how a lot of Cav fans feel is how bad were those injuries, because they all came back. I think Darius Garland's is the most significant. Like, it's hard to plant on that toe, and I get that. So I don't know. And the way that the Cavs responded to these questions and to those narratives, to those storylines, that's what game 5 is going to be all about. Are the Cavs, are they soft? Like, that, regardless of injury, are they not physical enough? Are they not mean enough? Have the Pacers taken it to them? And how did they respond? Not well. Like, game 4, they looked like they'd gotten punched and they were dazed and confused and didn't know what to do and how to stop it and where to stop the bleeding and how to stop. Like, the Cavs looked out of sorts in game. I mean, just one of the worst playoff performances I think I've seen from a team. Now, if you're a Pacers fan, you feel pretty confident, so that. But again, I think in a 7-game series and in the NBA playoffs, each game is their own thing. Could the Cavs come out and beat the Pacers by 20 next game? Absolutely. They shoot well enough. They've got good enough offensive talent. They've got big guys that could score in the post. If that's the route they decide to go, they can score on Miles and them. But I don't, and this was an interesting conversation and has been one over the last couple of years, is that seeding doesn't really matter anymore because of the way these teams come into the playoffs. Like, does it really matter that the Pacers started on the road? No, they went and won 2 games. So seeding is not as important as it had once been. And I think with the new CBA and the way that the players' deals are structured and the fact that there's no like mega team anymore, I think it has even the playing field. And it's more exciting for me personally, especially as somebody that likes a smaller market in the Pacers. These series, I mean, I really do. I feel like the Pacers have a good shot against all these teams. And I think the teams from 1 to 6 had a good shot. Like, even the Pistons gave a huge fight to the Knicks, who looked like they were on their way to an Eastern Conference final easily. But even, the Pistons look great. And I think it's evening out. It's more fun this way when anybody can win. Maybe it's not great for TV ratings, but like, how cool would it be? And I heard a bunch of people talking about what would be some of the funkiest NBA final matchups, because there's a lot of teams left that would be kind of funky. But they're like, the Pacers and Wolves would be fun, or the Pacers and Golden State would be a funny one, or even OKC and the Pacers. And then they were like, well, it could be, or then it could be the flip opposite, where it is a team like Golden State gets through and and get to play the Celtics. Like those are two teams that have been there, right? But there are some interesting matchups that could happen. Like you could have a Denver and Indianapolis, the Denver and the Pacers, or you could have the Cavs and the Cavs and the Nuggets. Like, those are just, it would be funny. Like it'd be kind of weird teams that we're not used to being in the Nuggets, yes, but like the Cavs ever since LeBron, no, like, but yeah, the Pacers, it's funny because they always use the Pacers because the Pacers haven't been there and since 2000 and haven't won an NBA championship. ABA, yes, but not NBA. But they were talking about how the Pacers would just be a lot of fun in the finals because it would create such a weird dynamic against whoever they played. But a lot of people were like, Minnesota and Indiana would be so much fun, like a Midwest battle. So, which I agree. Let's do it. That'd be fun. Game 5 adjustments. So again, talking about physicality and how the Pacers can adjust for a game 5 coming off a huge win. It's very difficult to adjust because you don't want to fix what's not broken. But I think the Pacers adjustment would be maybe even ramp it up even more physically. And I'm not talking about going out and socking somebody or anything like that. But I just mean keep that intensity level, right? Even in the second half, they kind of let off. But I know that was like the bench unit. But still, like, just keep going. Like, steamroll this team right out of the playoffs. Send them to Cancun on a defiant win. Like, knock this team completely on its butt. And I think the Pacers have that ability to do it. I think that they are hungry enough. I think people talk poorly enough about them. I think they can be chippy enough. And I don't ever want to see anything dirty. So, but I think going into this game, they need to be physical because it seems to really impact the game. Like the Cavs get really upset about the Pacers being physical with them. So keep that going because that intensity and that physicality has really just put this team in a weird headspace. The Cavs. So because they've really not done anything dirty. I mean, if you're looking at it in an objective way, the only foul that I think could be deemed somewhat dirty by an outsider would have been that Benedict Mathurin foul, but he was going for the ball. It just so happened that he lands and dislocates his finger. And most people would have attempted that block if they were athletic enough. So I don't understand where this narrative is coming from, this dirty stuff. Because people are like, well, how about Obi Toppin pushing Donovan Mitchell? Well, if you've ever played basketball and you're going at a high speed and you're chasing down somebody and you put your hand on somebody that jumps in the air, they're going to go flying. It's just physics. So it's not like Obi Toppin's like throwing Donovan onto the ground. He just puts his hand on him and the momentum, I think, with both of them carry them and Donovan goes down. So again, I don't think anything that the Pacers ever have done is malicious or dirty. I just think it's a physical game and you have to match physicality with physicality, but I don't think the Cavs can. And I think that's where the Pacers have that advantage. And that would be the only adjustment, a slight uptick in, I guess, being more physical with them, like constantly being in their pocket, getting into their defense or in their offense or the offense and getting into them defensively is what I'm trying to say. So I think that's one adjustment. But other than that, the Pacers, I don't think really have adjustments. Adjust to whatever they're going to do with that zone. I don't know if they're really going to try to go to that zone as much again because the Pacers have figured it out. But being on the road, it can be more difficult to shoot, and maybe they do try that zone out. But I do feel like the Pacers felt very confident in the adjustments that they made in Game 4. So that's really it for the Pacers adjustment. But the Cavs adjustments, honestly, physicality. They have to be more physical. They've got to match physicality with physical play. And that's just how that's going to have to work for the Cavs to try to win this series. Another adjustment, I guess, that the Cavs could make is, I guess, tighten up again that defense on Halliburton, making sure he does not ever touch the ball in the backcourt and make Andrew Nembhard beat you. But like I said, once you get to Game 5, I mean, a lot of those adjustments just come down to we just got to do what we've adjusted to. We got to do what we've seen and just kind of adjust on the fly. because what the Cavs have done is I think they've exhausted a lot of their adjustments and effort to change the way that they're playing against this Pacers team. I just don't know what else they can do. And I think that's where you can kind of understand the Pacers' confidence in advancing in this series, and maybe not the Pacers' confidence, but the Pacers fans' confidence, the national media's confidence in the Pacers advancing in this series, at least for most of them, is the fact that like at a certain point you just run out of adjustments, right? Like yes, there's always going to be slight tweaks and some adjustments that you can make, and obviously the Cavs will be shoot better, right? Get into the flow of their offense, slow down the Pacers. But these are always adjustments that have been going on for the whole series. So at this point, you get to game 5, it's like you either do that, you make those adjustments that we've talked about, or this team's just going to beat you. Like there's nothing else. I can't go out there and say, all right, time to start something else. Like let's play a 1-3-1 zone. Let's play a box and one. Like I just don't think that that's feasible. I don't think that you can make that many adjustments defensively and be successful. I think with the one big adjustment and the one curveball that they really had to throw at the Pacers was that zone, and it just doesn't seem to be working now, or at least as effectively as it did in game 3. And I think the Pacers would solve it in the rest of the series. So again, I think the Cavs are kind of exhausted and you know, their play and their actual fatigue, literally, but also figuratively. I think that the Cavs are just have exhausted all things that they can do. They got to hit 3-pointers. They got to shoot better at home. They got to cause that Cavalanche, put the Pacers on the back foot, start better. But again, these are all pretty obvious things that the Cavs have to do to adjust to beat the Pacers. I just don't know if they have enough, especially for 3 straight games. And especially if Donovan Mitchell isn't 100%. So again, that report is that Donovan Mitchell is a game time decision coming up during game 5. So a game 5 decision is going to be made that could really impact the rest of this. Not the rest of it. Of course, it's going to impact the rest of the series, but could be the reason why the Pacers end up winning game 5. It's going to have an impact on the rest of this series, because if Donovan can't go at 100%, if Donovan can't do the things that he has done, which hasn't been enough, which is crazy to think. He's almost scored 50 points. He was averaging over 40 points a game until yesterday. Like the fact that the Pacers just need to slow him down a little bit, and now he's got the injury. I mean, it might be over for the Cavs because they need Donovan Mitchell at 100%, but they won't get that for the rest of the year. So we'll see. Game time decision, Donovan Mitchell. I don't know what all he can give. He relies so heavily on getting to the rim, especially because he's just not shooting the ball very well at all from deep. It was too bad for him, too, because he'd hit one deep 3, I think, in the second quarter. And they're like, all right, finally, he's hitting the shot. And then he got hurt. And that injury just did not look good. He wasn't even really doing it. He was lifting to get ready to take a 3-point shot during a warm-up and just couldn't get off the ground. So then he kind of crumpled. It looked bad. But MRIs, I guess, are clean enough because he wouldn't be a game time decision. He'd be out if it was an issue, like a real issue that could cause more harm. So tough news for the Cavs. A tough series, a tough matchup for them. Like this, I think they knew that this was going to be a tougher matchup. He's only 28 years old. I didn't know that. I thought he was older. I'm here talking about how he's on the older side of an NBA player. He's only 28 years old. But yeah, I mean, I would have concerns if I was the Cavs, just because you needed 100% Donovan Mitchell to even stay close in this series. Now that he's not, and now that the Pacers seem to kind of have a space in these Cav players' heads about how physical they're playing when they're really not. I mean, I'd be kind of concerned if I was Cleveland. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what is really the problem. And these Cavs think that they're getting, and this might be the fault of some of Kenny Atkinson saying that the Pacers were being a little overly physical or crossing that line, is because Now the Cavs players have bought into that, and the Pacers really aren't being more physical than they've ever been. Like they were this, I mean, I would say they were even more physical against the Bucks because they really don't like the Bucks. I don't even think they've gotten their best physicality punch, I guess you could call it, that the Pacers can throw. You keep talking about them, they will show you what the Bucks got to see. So yeah, I mean, if I'm a Pacer fan, I'm feeling really good. If you look at Game 5, right, keys to the game, and then we'll get into Game 5 predictions. I usually give 5 predictions for the following game. But keys to the game: Pacers playing your tempo, setting that tempo, setting the level of physicality is important for the Pacers on the road, especially. If you start out by smacking them in the head again, then the Cavs could very well just fold. Like that's what they've done. They've shown that they've done that. Game 3, the only time they really didn't show that they were able to fold. Although I will say they had a really good lead in the first quarter, and once the Pacers got hot, they did sort of go, "Oh no, here they come." And then in the second quarter, the Pacers were just really bad. So the Cavs were able to run away with it. But even in the fourth quarter, the Pacers made a run back at them. Even though the Cavs had controlled most of that game, the Pacers at least made it somewhat scary for them in the fourth. So you really start to question what these Cavs teams made of. Do they have enough grit? So pace is key number 1. Play at your pace, Pacers. Make it uncomfortable for the Cavs. Keep defending the way you have. Physicality, using your bodies, making contact with them, always making contact with the offensive player, right? Making sure they're felt, that presence is felt. Fly around the floor, get angry, play with that chip on your shoulder that you have where people still don't believe in you. Close this game out and get some extra rest for the Eastern Conference Finals, which would be huge. Like, we're not usually the team that's sitting there waiting for the other team to come. So those are my keys. Oh, sorry, rebound too. That goes along with physicality. Those are my 3 keys: pace, physicality, and defense, and get the rebound. Game 5 predictions. So I'm going to start out like I do with more like player predictions and then team-based predictions and then what I think is going to happen in the game. So my first prediction for Game 5 is going to be that Tyrese Halliburton has a 15-10 game. I think he's going to have 15 points and more and 10 assists. Like, it's been quite a quiet with assists lately. So I think he's due for a big assist kind of game. Prediction number 2, I'm going to go with Miles Turner on this one. And Miles is a go-to guy for me as far as these predictions. I'm going to say Miles hits 4 threes again. He hit 4 threes. He was 4 for 4 in Game 4. I think he hits 4 threes in Game 5. Like, I feel like Miles will have a really big game. So I'm going to go with 4 threes for Miles Turner. Prediction number 3, I'm going to say Benedict Mathurin has 20-plus points. I think he's going to come out very angry. He's like the Hulk. Number 4, I'm going to say the Pacers win the rebounding battle. That's probably fun, huh? I'm going to say they win it. And then prediction number 5, this is tough because in my heart, I want to pick the Pacers. My head says to pick the Cavs because I feel like they know what's at stake. And the Pacers have shown they've been a little bit vulnerable to teams that have been desperate, which is good because the Pacers are putting them in desperate situations and then they respond in the next game. But like these games where I've really felt like they could just seal the deal. They tend to not play up to their snuff in these types of games. So my head says the Cavs win this game. My heart says the Pacers. And the Cavs win this one. But I still think the Pacers in 6. I think they will close it out at home. Plus, if I'm wrong, then that's exciting. So if the Pacers win Game 5, then I'm cool with that. What's my level of confidence in a Cavs win for Game 5? I would say my level of confidence in a Cavs win is like 51% compared to 49% for the Pacers. Like, It is ever so slight, just because I still think like it's very difficult to win in Cleveland. Pacers did it twice. They needed a miracle in game 2 to do that, but the Cavs really owned them in that game. And I just feel like they're going to come out with, and we keep saying they're coming out with their best punch, come out with their best punch. But like this team, I mean, they're one loss away from not only the offseason and being eliminated, but like I think major changes will come for Cleveland. Or if not major changes, major disappointment because they can't make those changes because of roster, restrictions. But I think the Pacers could put them into this weird spot of like, we know this team's not good enough to contend for a title, but we're stuck with them. So those are my thoughts for game 5. Let me know in the comments below. What are your game 5 predictions? Give me 5 of them. Give me 3 of them. Give me 1. Will the Pacers win? Do we think that the Pacers knock out the Cavs in game 5? Do the Cavs force a game 6? Will this thing go 7? Who do you think the Pacers play in the Eastern Conference Finals? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Leave a comment. It helps people find us. If you're over on Apple or Spotify listening to this podcast or wherever you're finding these podcasts, make sure to rate and comments. When you rate our podcast, it helps people identify shows, and fans like you, Pacer fans, or even if Cavs fans are listening to this, helps people find the show. If you're a Cavs fan, let me know why you think the Cavs have a chance in this series or if it's over. What are the moves that the Cavs make if this is over, if this is it? So, yeah, let me know your thoughts. Game 5 coming up on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time on TNT. That's right, TNT. Glad we were off that NBA TV stuff that was last round. That was awful. But, yeah, thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. You can find us on socials over at the Pacers Fever Show. We're on X, Instagram, Facebook. We'll eventually get on TikTok. And also, we will be previewing the Indiana Fever. So this show just not only just covers the Indiana Pacers, we will be talking Indiana Fever. The season preview will be coming up this week at some point. I'm going to jump on here and record the Fever's season preview. We'll talk WNBA, what I expect from the Fever this season, and Caitlin Clark. And we'll also dive into the NBA and WNBA seasons as they progress over the next couple of years or however long I do this podcast. But thanks for listening. We've really enjoyed the engagement so far, and I can't wait to hear all about what you guys think are going to happen in this game 5. And I cannot wait to see this game 5 that's happening tomorrow night in Cleveland.